Jake Morrison felt his stomach drop as red warning lights filled the cockpit of his small ship. The engine had just died completely, and he was still 3 hours away from the nearest space station. His exploration mission to map the outer planets had been going perfectly until this moment. Now he was drifting in space around a planet that Earth's computers said had no life on it. Jake tried to restart the engine several times, but nothing worked. The fuel lines had burst, and coolant was leaking into space. He could see the green and blue planet below him getting larger as his ship fell toward it. There was no choice but to crash land and hope someone would come looking for him. The landing was rough. Jake's ship hit the ground hard, bouncing twice before sliding to a stop in a field of purple grass. When the dust settled, he could see that his ship would never fly again. The hull was cracked, and one wing had broken off completely. At least the life support system still worked, and the emergency beacon was sending out a distress signal. Jake put on his spacesuit and stepped outside. The air scanner showed the atmosphere was safe to breathe, so he took off his helmet. The air smelled sweet, like flowers and rain. Strange trees with silver leaves grew nearby, and 2 small suns hung in the orange sky. This planet was definitely not empty like Earth's records claimed. As Jake walked around his crashed ship, he heard voices coming from the trees. They were speaking in a language he had never heard before, with lots of clicking and buzzing sounds. Jake pulled out his sidearm, but kept it lowered. First contact with alien life was supposed to happen under very different circumstances, with diplomats and scientists, not a crashed pilot alone on a strange world. 3 creatures emerged from the trees, walking on 4 legs like large insects. They had smooth shells that changed color from green to blue, and their heads looked like a mix between a mantis and a butterfly. The largest one was about the size of a small horse, while the other 2 were smaller. All 3 had huge eyes that seemed to show intelligence and curiosity rather than hostility. The largest creature stepped forward and made a series of clicks and whistles. When Jake did not respond, it touched a small device on its neck. Suddenly, words came out in broken but understandable English. "You are hurt, sky traveler. We help you." Jake looked down and realized blood was running down his arm from a cut he had not noticed. The adrenaline from the crash had masked the pain. "I'm okay," he said carefully. "My name is Jake Morrison. I'm from Earth." "Earth," the creature repeated, its translator struggling with the word. "I am Chidex Vel, leader of Hidden Ones. You come with us. We help hurt arm." Jake hesitated. These aliens seemed friendly, but he had no idea what their intentions really were. However, his arm was bleeding more than he had thought, and his medical supplies were limited. He nodded and followed the 3 creatures into the forest. The alien settlement was well hidden among the trees and rocks. Jake counted about 30 small dome-shaped buildings made from what looked like grown crystal rather than built metal. Gardens of strange plants surrounded each home, and young alien creatures played in open spaces between the buildings. Everything looked peaceful and organized. Chidex Vel led Jake to a larger building in the center of the settlement. Inside, another alien was waiting with medical supplies. This one introduced itself as Nexustor, the settlement's healer. Nexustor examined Jake's arm with careful movements, cleaning the wound with a liquid that made his skin tingle but stopped the bleeding immediately. While Nexustor worked, Chidex Vel explained their situation. The creatures called themselves Zephyrians, and they were refugees hiding from something called the Hegemony Alliance. The Hegemony hunted their people across many worlds, forcing them to hide in secret colonies like this one. They had been on this planet for over 2 Earth years, growing food and trying to rebuild their lives. Jake learned that the Zephyrians were naturally peaceful. They had no weapons and spent their time growing crystal technology that could heal injuries and power machines without harming the environment. The hegemony wanted to capture them and use their crystal knowledge for making weapons, which the Zephyrians refused to do. As Nexustor finished treating his arm, Jake noticed something troubling. Several young Zephyrians in the medical building looked very sick. Their shells had turned a dull gray color, and they barely moved. Nexustor's movements became sad when Jake asked about them. "The little ones die from sickness," Chidaxvel explained through the translator. "Our medicine cannot help. We lose many already." Jake felt his heart sink as he watched the dying young aliens. These creatures had helped him without question, even though they were struggling with their own crisis. He asked Nexustor to describe the symptoms of the illness affecting the young Zephyrians. The disease caused fever, difficulty breathing, and weakness that got worse over time. Jake realized these symptoms sounded very similar to bacterial infections that affected humans. He remembered his basic medical training from the Earth Colonial Survey Corps and wondered if human antibiotics might help. "I might be able to help," Jake said carefully. "I have medicine in my ship that could work for this kind of sickness." Chidaxvel's shell changed to bright blue, which Jake learned meant excitement and hope. However, Jake knew he was taking a huge risk. His emergency medical supplies were meant to keep him alive until rescue arrived. If he used them to help the Zephyrians and his rescue was delayed, he might die on this planet. Jake returned to his crashed ship and gathered his entire medical kit. He had antibiotics, pain relievers, and emergency surgery supplies. Everything he brought back to the Zephyrian settlement represented his only chance of surviving a serious injury or illness. While stranded, Nexus-Tor watched with intense interest as Jake explained how human medicine worked. The Zephyrian healer was fascinated by the concept of using chemicals to fight infections inside the body. Jake started with a small dose of antibiotics for one of the sickest young Zephyrians, carefully monitoring for any bad reactions. Within hours, the young Zephyrian's color began to return to normal. Its breathing became easier, and it started moving around its bed. Nexustor was amazed by the rapid improvement. Jake felt a mixture of relief and worry as he realized his medicine was working, but he now had less available for himself. Over the next several days, Jake and Nexustor worked together to treat all the sick young Zephyrians. Jake showed the healer how to measure proper doses and recognize signs of improvement. He also taught Nexustor to identify local plants that could be processed into basic antibiotics. Sharing his knowledge of human biochemistry, the grateful Zephyrian community did everything they could to help Jake in return. Their crystal technology was far more advanced than anything humans had developed. Chidaxvel and the other engineers worked with Jake to repair his ship's communication system, using crystal power sources that were much more efficient than human technology. After a week of working together, Jake's communication array was functioning. Again, he could send messages back toward Earth, though it would take months for any signal to reach the Sol system. More importantly, he could call for rescue from any human ships that might be traveling through nearby space as Jake prepared. To leave the planet, Chidaxvel gave him a small crystal device. "This will let your people find us again," the Zephyrian leader explained. "You saved our young ones. Zephyrians do not forget kindness." Jake promised that humans would remember the Zephyrians and their generosity. He filed official reports marking their planet as a protected refuge under Earth Colonial Authority regulations. As his repaired ship lifted off from the purple grass field, Jake had no idea that his decision to help the Zephyrians would soon change the balance of power across the galaxy. 3 months after Jake Morrison had left their world, the Zephyrians continued their peaceful life among the crystal trees. The young ones who had been saved by human medicine were now healthy and strong. Nexustor had become skilled at making the antibiotic compounds from local plants, following the methods Jake had taught. The settlement felt safer and more hopeful than it had in years. Shitax Vel was teaching the young Zephyrians about crystal growing when the warning sensors began to scream. The leader's shell immediately shifted to deep red, a color that meant extreme danger. High above their planet, massive ships had just appeared from hyperspace. The sensor readings showed 3 heavy cruisers with the distinctive energy signatures of hegemony. War vessels dot the peaceful settlement exploded into controlled panic. Zephyrians had drilled for this moment many times, but they had always hoped it would never come. Parents gathered their young, while engineers began shutting down all crystal technology that might give away their location. The settlement's camouflage systems activated, making their buildings blend perfectly with the surrounding forest. Nexustor ran to the communication center where several Zephyrians were monitoring the hegemony transmissions. The messages were being broadcast in multiple languages, demanding immediate response from any Zephyrian settlements on the planet. The hegemony commander's voice was cold and mechanical through the translator. Attention criminal Zephyrian refugees. This is Admiral Kozak of the Hegemony Third Fleet. You have been tracked to this system through intercepted communications. Surrender immediately for processing, or face the consequences of resisting lawful authority. Chidax Vel knew that processing meant death or slavery in hegemony labor camps. The reptilian species that controlled the Hegemony Alliance viewed all other life forms as either useful resources or obstacles to be eliminated. They had been hunting Zephyrian refugees across dozens of star systems, claiming that crystal technology belonged to the hegemony by right of conquest. The Zephyrian leader activated the emergency council channel, connecting with other hidden settlements scattered across their planet. All 6 colonies had detected the hegemony ships and were preparing for the worst. Their combined population was less than 800 individuals, mostly families with young ones. They had no weapons and no military training. We must try to negotiate, Chidax Vel transmitted to the other settlements. Perhaps they will honor the human protection claim. Jake Morrison's official reports had classified their planet as a protected refuge under Earth colonial authority. The Zephyrians had hoped this designation would keep them safe, but they were about to learn that the hegemony cared nothing for human law. Admiral Kozak's response came within minutes of receiving Chidax Vel's transmission. The hegemony commander's voice carried obvious amusement and contempt. Human protection claims have no authority in this sector. The primitive species from Earth lacks the power to enforce such declarations. You will surrender now, or be taken by force. The first orbital bombardment began an hour later. Plasma beams from the hegemony cruisers struck the northern settlement without warning. The energy weapons turned crystal buildings into glass vapor and set the forest on fire for miles. Around 200 Zephyrians died in the first attack, including many young ones who had been playing in the gardens. Chidax Vel felt rage for the first time in years as reports of the destruction reached the main settlement. The Zephyrians were peaceful by nature, but they were not helpless. Their crystal technology included defensive systems that could absorb and redirect energy attacks. However, these defenses had never been tested against military-grade weapons. The evacuation to the underground caverns began immediately. Generations of Zephyrians had carved tunnels deep into the planet's crust, creating hiding places that could shelter their entire population. The crystal-lined caves provided power and clean air, allowing them to survive underground for months if necessary. Nexustor helped carry the youngest Zephyrians into the tunnels while the engineers worked frantically to move their most important technology. The communication equipment had to be saved at all costs, along with the medical supplies and crystal seeds that could regrow their civilization elsewhere if they survived. As the second wave of orbital bombardment struck their settlement, Chidax Vel made a desperate decision. The human Jake Morrison had left them with communication codes that could reach Earth's military forces. The Zephyrian leader knew that sending such a message would take their entire power reserve and reveal their exact location to the hegemony ships. "We may all die today," Chidex Vel announced to the assembled refugees in the caves. "But perhaps our sacrifice will teach the galaxy that kindness should be rewarded, not punished." The message transmission began as hegemony ground forces landed near the ruins of their settlement. Dozens of reptilian soldiers in powered armor spread out through the forest, using energy scanners to search for hidden Zephyrians. Their weapons were designed to capture rather than kill, since living prisoners were more valuable than corpses. Nexustor operated the communication array while explosions shook the cavern above them. The healer had learned enough about human technology from Jake to boost the signal strength beyond normal limits. The crystal power cores overloaded one by one as they poured all their energy into sending a message toward the distant sol system. "This is Chidax Vel of the Zephyrian refugees. On planet designation Kepler 442c, the transmission began. The human Jake Morrison showed us that honor exists in the galaxy. We ask not for rescue, but that our sacrifice be remembered. The Hegemony Alliance has found our peaceful settlement and is destroying us for the crime of helping one of your people." The message continued with detailed information about the Hegemony attack, including ship configurations and the location of other Zephyrian refugee settlements throughout the sector. Chidax Vel wanted Earth's military to understand exactly what they were facing if they chose to respond. As the transmission ended, the communication array exploded in a shower of crystal fragments. The cavern's power systems failed, leaving the refugees in darkness except for a few emergency crystals. Above them, they could hear the sound of hegemony soldiers using plasma cutters to break through the sealed tunnel entrances. The first group of soldiers reached the main cavern 2 hours later. Admiral Kozak himself led the assault team, wanting to personally capture the Zephyrian leadership. The reptilian commander was twice the size of any Zephyrian, with armored scales and glowing red eyes that showed no mercy. "You have caused considerable trouble for the hegemony," Kozak announced as his soldiers surrounded the huddled refugees. "Your crystal technology will serve the Alliance well. Those who cooperate will be allowed to work in our research facilities. Those who resist will feed our war beasts." Chidax Vel stepped forward, keeping fear from showing in the colors of their shell. "We are protected by human colonial law. The Earth species has claimed this world as a refuge for peaceful beings." Admiral Kozak's laughter echoed through the cavern. "The humans are a minor species barely capable of interstellar travel. They have no power in this region of space. Your pathetic message will reach no one who matters." The hegemony commander gestured to his soldiers, who began separating the Zephyrians into groups. The young ones and females were loaded onto transport shuttles, bound for the orbiting cruisers. The adult males would be interrogated about crystal technology before being sent to labor camps. Nexustor watched helplessly as families were torn apart. The healer clutched the small crystal device that Jake Morrison had used to help treat the sick young ones. It contained the chemical formulas for human medicine, translated into Zephyrian crystal notation. If they survived this attack, at least some of human knowledge would be preserved. As the last group of prisoners was loaded onto the shuttles, Admiral Kozak ordered the remaining caverns to be sealed with plasma charges. The hegemony preferred to eliminate potential hiding places, rather than waste time searching every tunnel. The explosions brought down tons of rock, crushing any remaining crystal technology. The 3 hegemony cruisers departed from orbit 12 hours after their arrival. They left behind a dead world where 6 peaceful settlements had once flourished. The purple grass fields were blackened craters, and the silver trees had been reduced to ash by orbital bombardment. In the depths of space, a single transmission continued its journey toward the Sol system. The message carried authentication, codes that would identify Jake Morrison as its source, along with detailed coordinates for the destroyed Zephyrian colony. Admiral Kozak had no idea that human military doctrine considered attacks on protected settlements to be acts of war requiring immediate and overwhelming response. The survivors of the Zephyrian colony were now prisoners aboard hegemony ships. But their sacrifice would soon echo across the galaxy. Earth's armies were about to learn that one of their own had been helped by peaceful aliens, and that those aliens had been murdered for their kindness. The Hegemony Alliance was about to discover why humans were considered one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy when their friends were threatened. Communications Officer Lisa Hayes was finishing her night shift at Luna Station when the priority alert chimed through her headset. After 18 hours of monitoring routine traffic between Earth and the outer colonies, she was looking forward to getting some sleep. The alert made her sit up straight in her chair and focus on the incoming transmission display. The signal was weak and broken, clearly sent from far beyond the normal communication range. Lisa adjusted the receivers and began running the message through the translation computers. What appeared on her screen made her blood run cold. The transmission was authenticated with Colonial Survey Corps codes belonging to Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, but the content described an alien massacre. Lisa immediately forwarded the message to her supervisor, then began the process of verifying the authentication codes. Jake Morrison's file showed he was currently on a long-range exploration mission in the Kepler system, exactly where this transmission had originated. The message was definitely real, which meant humans had just learned about their first alien contact under the worst possible circumstances. Within an hour, the transmission had reached Admiral Patricia Wells at Terra Nova Defense Headquarters. The Admiral was known throughout Earth's military as a brilliant strategist who never backed down from a fight when human interests were threatened. She read Jake Morrison's original reports about the Zephyrian colony 3 times before calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Admiral Wells had served in the colonial wars 20 years earlier, fighting against human pirates and corporate armies that threatened innocent settlements. She understood the importance of protecting those who could not protect themselves. The Zephyrians had helped one of her officers and been murdered for that kindness. This was exactly the kind of situation that required immediate military response. Defense Council meeting brought together the commanders of Earth's major military fleets. General Robert Kane commanded the Marine Expeditionary Forces, while Admiral Susan Muir led the Home Defense Fleet. Admiral Wells presented Jake Morrison's reports and the Zephyrian distress message to the assembled officers. "These aliens saved the life of one of our people," Admiral Wells explained to the council. "They shared their medical knowledge and technology to help repair his ship. In return, they were slaughtered by this Hegemony Alliance for the crime of helping a human." General Kane studied the tactical data about Hegemony ship configurations and weapon systems. The enemy vessels appeared to be heavily armed, but used older technology compared to Earth's newest military hardware. However, the Hegemony had been fighting wars across multiple star systems, while humans had only recently developed interstellar combat capabilities. "The Kepler system is 47 light-years from Earth," Admiral Moore pointed out. "Even with our fastest ships, a rescue mission would take 6 weeks each way. We don't know if any Zephyrians are still alive to rescue." Admiral Wells had already considered this problem. "The principle matters more than the outcome," she replied. "If we ignore this attack, other alien species will learn that helping humans leads to abandonment. If we respond with overwhelming force, the galaxy will understand that Earth protects its friends." The debate continued for several hours as the military leaders discussed logistics and political consequences. Earth's government had been focused on expanding human colonies rather than building a large military force. The Colonial Defense Navy had been designed to protect human settlements, not fight wars in distant star systems. President Marcus Cole arrived at Terra Nova headquarters. As the Defense Council finished their preliminary planning, the president was a former military officer who understood both the strategic and moral implications of the Zephyrian massacre. He listened carefully as Admiral Wells presented three possible responses to the crisis. The first option was to send a diplomatic protest to the Hegemony Alliance through whatever communication channels existed. This would preserve Earth's resources, but send a message that humans abandoned their allies when threatened. The second option involved a limited rescue mission with 1 or 2 ships to search for survivors and gather intelligence about hegemony. Capabilities. The third option was what Admiral Wells recommended. Earth would assemble the largest military fleet in human history and sail to the Kepler system with enough firepower to destroy the entire hegemony force. The mission would rescue any surviving Zephyrians and establish a permanent human military presence to protect the colony. The cost will be enormous, President Cole observed. We'll have to pull ships and personnel from every other mission. The outer colonies will be left with minimal protection while this fleet is deployed. The outer colonies will be safer if we establish human military credibility now, Admiral Wells countered. Every alien species in the galaxy is watching to see how we respond to this test. If we show weakness, we'll face challenges on every frontier. President Cole called for a vote among the Defense Council members. General Kane and Admiral Moore both supported the full military response, recognizing that Earth's reputation would be shaped by their actions in this crisis. The vote was unanimous in favor of Admiral Wells' recommendation. The mobilization began immediately. Admiral Wells took personal command of the expeditionary fleet, transferring her flag to the battleship UES Valiant. The massive vessel had been completed only 6 months earlier and represented the pinnacle of human military technology. Its main guns could destroy a city from orbit, while its armor could withstand anything except direct hits from antimatter weapons. 12 heavy cruisers were pulled from patrol duties throughout the Sol system to join the expeditionary force. Each cruiser carried enough firepower to level a planet's surface and possessed advanced shields that could absorb tremendous amounts of damage. The cruiser captains were all veteran officers who had proven themselves in combat against human pirates and raiders. 36 destroyers formed the screening force for the larger ships. These fast vessels carried the newest human fighter craft and could operate independently for months at a time. Their crews were trained for boarding actions and close-quarters combat in space. Many of the destroyer captains had volunteered for the mission after learning about the Zephyrian massacre. 4 carrier vessels joined the fleet to provide extended fighter coverage and mobile command centers. Each carrier held over 100 combat aircraft, along with support equipment for long-range operations. The fighter pilots were eager to test their skills against alien opponents after years of training exercises. The ground forces assigned to the expedition included 50,000 Marines from Earth's most elite units. Colonel Ryan Clark commanded the assault troops, while Colonel Susan Martinez led the specialized units trained for alien contact situations. The Marines carried the most advanced powered armor and weapon systems that human technology could produce. Supply ships loaded with food, ammunition, and replacement parts completed the massive fleet. The expedition was planned to operate independently for up to 1 year without resupply from Earth. Admiral Wells wanted enough resources to not only rescue the Zephyrians, but also establish a permanent base in the Kepler system as the fleet. Assembled in Earth orbit, President Cole addressed the crews via secure communication. "You carry with you the honor and determination of all humanity," he announced. "The galaxy will judge our species by your actions in the coming weeks. Show them that humans keep their promises and protect those who show us kindness." The departure from Earth orbit took place over several days as different ship groups activated their hyperspace drives. Admiral Wells remained in the Sol system until all vessels had safely entered hyperspace, then ordered her flagship to follow. The U.S. Valiant and its escort ships disappeared from normal space. In a flash of blue energy dot, the journey to the Yasu Kepler system would take 6 weeks at maximum hyperspace velocity. During that time, the fleet crews would train constantly for the coming battle. Intelligence officers studied every piece of data about hegemony military capabilities, while Marine units practiced assault tactics for alien ship designs. Admiral Wells spent the voyage reviewing Jake Morrison's reports and planning multiple scenarios for what they might find upon arrival. The hegemony forces might have left the system after destroying the Zephian colony, or they might have established a permanent occupation. Either way, Admiral Wells was determined to send a message that would echo across the galaxy dot in her private quarters aboard the U.S. Valiant. Admiral Wells recorded a message that would be transmitted to Earth after the mission was complete. Today, humanity learned that kindness shown to one of our own will be repaid with the protection of our entire military force, she spoke to the camera. Let all species know that Earth remembers its friends, and Earth protects those who cannot protect themselves. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system in perfect formation. Admiral Patricia Wells watched from the bridge of the U.S. Valiant as 64 warships materialized around her flagship. The sight of so many human vessels in one place would have been impressive under any circumstances. But here in alien space, it represented the largest projection of Earth's military power in history. Long range sensors immediately began scanning the inner system for signs of hegemony forces. The tactical display showed 3 large contacts in orbit around the planet where Jake Morrison had first met the Zephyrians. Energy readings confirmed these were military vessels using weapons-grade power systems. Admiral Wells felt a cold satisfaction, knowing that at least some of the attackers were still present. Signal from the lead contact, reported Communications Officer Blake Carter. They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our business in this system. Admiral Wells studied the alien transmission for a moment before responding. The hegemony commander's voice carried the arrogance of someone who had never faced serious opposition. This reptilian officer clearly believed that human ships posed no threat to his superior technology and experience. "This is Admiral Patricia Wells of the Earth Colonial Defense Force," she transmitted back. "You are in violation of human colonial law by attacking a protected settlement. Prepare to be boarded for inspection of your activities in this system." The response from Admiral Kozak came quickly and dismissively. "Human authority means nothing in this region of space. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences of interfering with hegemony military operations." Admiral Wells had expected this reaction. She gave the order that would change the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. All ships, battle stations, prepare for immediate engagement. Show them what human consequences look like. The first volley from the human fleet lit up space like a supernova. Kinetic bombardment weapons fired tungsten projectiles at near-light speed, while energy weapons sent streams of focused plasma toward the hegemony vessels. The alien ships had strong shields, but they had never faced the concentrated firepower of Earth's newest military technology. Admiral Kozak's flagship took 12 direct hits in the first 30 seconds of combat. The hegemony shields flared and collapsed under the sustained assault, allowing human weapons to tear through the alien hull like paper. Kozak had time to send one brief transmission of shock and disbelief before his ship broke apart in a ball of expanding plasma. The 2 remaining hegemony cruisers tried to retreat toward the outer system, but human destroyers were already moving to cut off their escape routes. The alien vessels were larger and more heavily armed than individual human ships, but they were outnumbered 20-1 and facing weapon systems they had never encountered before. Captain Nina Rodriguez led. the first wave of assault shuttles toward the planet's surface as the space battle continued above. Her Marines were loaded into heavy dropships designed to penetrate hostile airspace and deliver troops directly to combat zones. Each dropship carried 40 fully armed soldiers, along with vehicles and heavy weapons. The planetary assault began with orbital bombardment of known hegemony positions. Human cruisers used precision strikes to eliminate alien gun emplacements and communication arrays without damaging the surrounding forest. Captain Rodriguez watched the explosions bloom across the planet's surface as her shuttles descended through the atmosphere. Intelligence reports indicate possible survivors in underground locations. Rodriguez announced to her troops over the communication system, "We're looking for friendly aliens called Zephyrians who helped one of our people. Anyone who has harmed these beings will answer to Earth justice." The first human troops landed near the ruins of what had been the main Zephyrian settlement. The crystal buildings had been reduced to glass fragments, and the silver trees were nothing but charred stumps. Marine Sergeant Kevin Walsh led his squad through the devastation, searching for any signs of life or clues about what had happened to the peaceful aliens. Thermal scanners detected movement in underground locations throughout the area. Captain Rodriguez ordered her engineers to begin cutting through the sealed tunnel entrances that hegemony forces had collapsed with explosives. The work was slow and dangerous, since the aliens inside might be either Zephyrian survivors or hegemony. Soldiers left behind to guard prisoners. The first breakthrough came at a cave system 2 miles from the main settlement ruins. Sergeant Walsh rappelled down into the darkness with a team of combat specialists, their powered armor providing light and protection in the unknown environment. What they found at the bottom of the shaft made even hardened Marines stop in shock. Dozens of Zephyrian bodies lay scattered throughout the cavern, showing signs of execution rather than combat deaths. The peaceful aliens had been shot at close range after being forced to kneel in organized rows. Hegemony soldiers had murdered unarmed civilians in cold blood, including young ones who could not have posed any threat. "Command, this is Walsh," the sergeant reported through gritted teeth. "We found a mass grave down here. Looks like the enemy executed prisoners before pulling out." Captain Rodriguez felt rage building in her chest as more reports came in from other cave systems. The pattern was the same throughout the area. Hegemony forces had captured hundreds of Zephyrian civilians, interrogated them for information about crystal technology, then killed them to prevent rescue attempts. As the Marines continued their grim search, motion sensors detected movement in a deeper cave system that had been missed by the hegemony sweeps. Sergeant Walsh led a careful approach to the hidden chamber, not knowing whether they would find more bodies or actual survivors. The cavern they discovered held nearly 200 living Zephyrians, including many young ones and several adults who appeared to be injured. The aliens were huddled together in the darkness, their shells showing the gray color that indicated extreme fear and despair. When human lights illuminated the chamber, several Zephyrians tried to hide behind crystal formations. "Don't be afraid," Captain Rodriguez called out as she descended into the cavern. "We're humans from Earth. We received your message and came to help." One of the larger Zephyrians stepped forward cautiously, its shell shifting from gray to hopeful blue. The alien touched a translation device and spoke in broken English that Captain Rodriguez recognized from Jake Morrison's reports. "You are Jake Morrison's people?" the Zephyrian asked. "The sky traveler who helped our young ones with medicine?" "Yes," Rodriguez replied. "We're here because of what you did for him. My name is Captain Nina Rodriguez of the Earth Colonial Marines." The Zephyrian's shell blazed with bright yellow, a color that meant overwhelming joy and relief. "I am Nexustor, healer of the lost settlement. We thought all hope was gone when the hegemony ships came." As human medics began treating injured Zephyrians, Nexustor provided crucial intelligence about the hegemony occupation. The alien healer had observed the enemy's tactical methods and knew the locations of hidden weapon caches and communication equipment. More importantly, Nexustor possessed detailed information about other Zephyrian refugee settlements throughout the sector. Captain Rodriguez transmitted this intelligence to Admiral Wells, who was coordinating the destruction of the remaining hegemony ships in orbit. The human fleet had achieved complete space superiority within 2 hours of arriving in the system, but the larger strategic picture was becoming clear. This attack was part of a systematic campaign against Zephyrian refugees across multiple star systems. Admiral, we've recovered detailed star charts showing 7 other refugee settlements under attack, Rodriguez reported. The survivors are requesting protection for their people in other systems. Admiral Wells studied the intelligence data and made a decision that would reshape human policy toward alien species. Instead of simply rescuing the local survivors and returning to Earth, she chose to expand the mission into a full military campaign against hegemony forces throughout the region. All ship commanders, prepare for extended operations, Admiral Wells announced to the fleet. We're not just rescuing one colony. We're going to eliminate every hegemony force threatening peaceful aliens in this sector. The human ground forces established a defensive perimeter around the surviving Zephyrians while construction teams began building a permanent military base. Earth's first interstellar fortress would protect this world and serve as a staging point for operations against other hegemony targets. As Sergeant Walsh helped evacuate injured Zephyrians to human medical ships, he carried with him the memory of the executed civilians in the caves. The Marine had seen combat before, but nothing had prepared him for the casual brutality of the hegemony's treatment of peaceful beings. They're going to pay for what they did here, Walsh told his squad as they loaded the last group of survivors onto transport shuttles. Every last one of them is going to pay. Above them in orbit, Admiral Wells was already planning the next phase of operations. The human fleet would visit each Zephyrian settlement marked on Nexustor star charts, destroying any hegemony forces they encountered and establishing Earth's protection over the refugee populations. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the observation deck of the U's Valiant, watching construction crews build humanity's first permanent interstellar military base. The fortress rising from the purple grass of Kepler 442c would serve as both a symbol of Earth's commitment to protecting peaceful species and a strategic staging point for future operations in this region of space. Not 3 months had passed since the human fleet arrived to rescue the Zephyrian survivors. During that time, Admiral Wells had led her forces to 7 other star systems, systematically destroying every hegemony installation they encountered. The campaign had been swift and decisive, with human technology proving superior to anything the Reptilian Alliance could deploy. The rescued Zephyrians from all 8 settlements now lived under the protection of Earth's military umbrella. Their combined population of nearly 3,000 individuals represented one of the largest refugee communities in known space. More importantly, their advanced crystal technology had formed the basis for a formal alliance between their species. And Humanity. Captain Jake Morrison, recently promoted and assigned as Earth's first ambassador to the Zephyrian Autonomous Regions, approached Admiral Wells with the latest intelligence reports from the outer systems. His role had evolved far beyond that of a simple explorer, as he now served as the primary liaison between human military forces and the alien populations they protected. The Hegemony Supreme Council has issued a formal demand for our withdrawal from all occupied systems, Jake reported. Supreme Commander Vic Stu is threatening full-scale war if we don't abandon the Zephyrian colonies within 30 days. Admiral Wells read through the alien ultimatum with growing amusement. The hegemony leadership still believed they were dealing with a minor species that could be intimidated through threats of superior force. They had no understanding of human military doctrine or the principles that drove Earth's expansion into interstellar space. "What's our current force strength in the region?" Admiral Wells asked. 42 combat vessels spread across 8 systems, with marine garrisons on each protected world, Jake replied. Intelligence estimates the hegemony can deploy over 200 ships if they commit their entire 3rd and 4th fleets to this campaign. The admiral nodded thoughtfully. Human forces were outnumbered nearly 5 to 1, but she had learned not to judge alien military capabilities by simple ship counts. The hegemony vessels used older technology and tactics that had proven ineffective against Earth's newest weapon systems. More importantly, human crews fought with a determination that their enemies could not match. "Send a response to Supreme Commander Vexthol," Admiral Wells instructed. "Tell him that Earth remembers its friends, and Earth protects those who cannot protect themselves. If he wants war, he can have it." The message that went out from the human fleet became legendary throughout the galaxy within weeks. Admiral Wells had not simply rejected the hegemony ultimatum. She had declared human intention to expand their protection to any peaceful species threatened by aggressive military action. Earth was announcing its emergence as a major galactic power with clear moral principles. The hegemony response came exactly 30 days later, when over 150 alien warships dropped out of hyperspace near the Kepler system. Supreme Commander Vexthol led the assault fleet personally, confident that overwhelming numbers would force the humans to retreat back to their home system where they belonged. The Battle of Kepler's Edge lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the hegemony assault force. Human tactical coordination and superior weapons technology proved decisive against opponents who relied on brute force tactics. Supreme Commander Vexthol died when his flagship was torn apart by concentrated fire from 6 human cruisers. Of the hegemony defeat spread throughout civilized space faster than any previous military event. The Reptilian Alliance had been considered one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, capable of conquering entire star systems with their massive fleets. Their complete defeat by a previously unknown species shocked governments and military leaders across dozens of worlds. The Galactic Trade Federation sent diplomatic envoys to establish contact with Earth's government within a month of the battle. The Federation represented over 40 species engaged in interstellar commerce, and they were eager to understand human intentions and capabilities. President Marcus Cole received their ambassadors at the New Earth Embassy on Luna Station. "We offer membership in the Federation, along with full trading privileges throughout our territory," announced Ambassador Thylix, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid who served as the Federation's chief diplomat. "In return, we ask only that Earth respect existing trade agreements and territorial boundaries." President Cole studied the Federation's proposals carefully before responding. The offer was generous and would provide humanity with access to advanced alien technologies and established trade routes. However, acceptance would also require Earth to follow Federation policies regarding military intervention and species protection. "We appreciate your offer," President Cole replied diplomatically. "However, Earth's foreign policy is based on principles that may not align with Federation neutrality requirements. We will protect peaceful species regardless of their political affiliations or economic value." The rejection of Federation membership surprised diplomatic observers throughout the galaxy. Most emerging species eagerly sought acceptance into established interstellar organizations, viewing such membership as crucial for survival in a dangerous universe. Earth's decision to remain independent while actively protecting smaller species was unprecedented. Within 6 months of the Kepler victory, Earth had received diplomatic contact from over 20 different alien governments. Some offered military alliances against common threats, while others sought protection agreements similar to the arrangement with the Zephyrians. Each proposal was evaluated based on human principles rather than strategic advantage. The turning point came when the Altarian Republic requested Earth assistance against hegemony raids on their mining colonies. The Altarians were a peaceful species of crystalline beings who had refused to provide military support for any galactic conflicts. Their homeworld contained rare minerals essential for advanced technology production. Admiral Wells led a joint human Zephyrian fleet to the Altarian system, where they discovered a new hegemony invasion force preparing to occupy the planet. The ensuing battle demonstrated the effectiveness of human-alien cooperation, with Zephyrian crystal technology enhancing human weapon systems beyond their normal capabilities. The successful defense of Altaria established Earth as the protector of peaceful species throughout the region. Captain Jake Morrison found himself negotiating protection agreements with dozens of alien governments, each seeking the security that human military power could provide. The formal establishment of the Human Protection Doctrine occurred during a ceremony on New Geneva Station, Earth's newest diplomatic facility in neutral space. Representatives from 12 alien species signed mutual defense treaties with humanity, creating the first interstellar alliance based on shared values rather than military necessity. Nexustor, now serving as the Zephyrian representative to the Alliance, spoke for all the protected species during the signing ceremony. The humans taught us that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them, the healer announced through improved translation technology. Today we stand together as proof that different species can cooperate for the benefit of all. President Cole addressed the assembled delegates with words that would be remembered for generations. Earth extends its protection to any peaceful species threatened by aggression. We ask nothing in return except friendship and the commitment to help others when they need assistance. The galaxy's major powers watched the ceremony with varying degrees of concern and admiration. The Federation worried about human military expansion, disrupting established trade relationships. The Quarthic Empire saw potential allies against their traditional enemies. Smaller governments viewed Earth as either a savior or a threat to their independence. Admiral Wells returned to the Kepler system to oversee the continued expansion of human military presence throughout the protected territories. The fortress on Kepler 442c had grown into a major naval base capable of supporting over 100 warships. Similar installations were under construction on 6 other worlds, creating a network of human strongholds. As Jake Morrison walked through the rebuilt Zephyrian settlement, he reflected on how much had changed since his emergency landing on this world. The crystal buildings now incorporated human technology, creating structures that were both beautiful and incredibly strong. Young Zephyrians played alongside human children whose families had come to work at the naval base. The final message in Admiral Wells' personal log captured the transformation that had occurred. One human showed kindness to peaceful aliens and received help when he needed it most. Those aliens were murdered for their generosity, but their sacrifice awakened something in humanity that will reshape the galaxy. We have learned that our greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships, but our willingness to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves.